Fans of the Horus Heresy, thank you very much for joining me for a review of Tactical Marines. So this is going to be like a short series, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the 4 tactical squads that I have for my Iron Hands Legion, which are all equipped with a different mark of Space Marine powered armour. So Space Marine powered armour is quite an interesting thing in the game. It's a really rich part of the history, and there are lots of models easily available for marks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then looking ahead to 40k, 7. And it's quite interesting this because Space Marine powered armour, despite the enormous variety of models, has no effect on the game whatsoever. Unless you're playing Death Watch in Dark Heresy, the roleplay game, you know, it doesn't matter whether or not you equip your Marines with Mark 2 or Mark 6 or Mark 5 armour. They all work just the same. However, what they're really about is, of course, a visual impact and the look and the personalisation of your models, and then also the history and the fluff that goes around them. So yeah, so that's what this is going to be about, and I'm going to show you each squad. I'm going to take you through the modelling, how I built them, what parts I used, yeah, and just talk a little bit about the armour. So here we have the first squad, and the first squad, or my first tactical squad, is a 10-man unit, and they're wearing Mark II or Crusade Armour. So Mark II is the first fully operational powered armour that the Adeptus Astartes were equipped with, and as the name suggests, it was designed and outfitted at the start of a Great Crusade. So I think essentially at the end of the unification wars on Terra, and operations were starting to move outside of the atmosphere of Earth, there was a requirement for a full suit of powered armour, and also one that would function as a space suit and a suit for use in hostile environments. And that is indeed what Mark II armour does. So by the time of the Horus Heresy, which we're all gaming, Mark II armour is already something of a relic, and it has been out of production, in effect, or mass production for quite some time, and is very old war gear. And most of the Legionnaires by this time are equipped with Mark IV, really. You know, there are differences, but Mark IV is a general issue suit, although that changes as the heresy starts to unfold. So here we have the model. So these are all Mark II Marines by Forge World. Now this is made up of, let me work it out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kits. No, 6 different kits actually have gone into making these guys. So let me tell you what that is. So the first thing is there's 2 different sets of 2 different types of armour set for Mark II have gone into this. And unfortunately, these models aren't available anymore because they streamlined and redesigned their alternate armour marks. But originally there was an Armour Through the Ages set of Mark II armour, and then when the Horus Heresy range came out, they introduced the Legion armour version as well, which was different posers. So there was two variant packs of Mark II armour. Now that got simplified into a single set, and then obviously the hands got redesigned as well to coincide with the new plastic models from the Calth and Prospero box sets. So, but yeah, I've got one of each of those original packs making up this set. So that's the first 2 kits I've used. The second kit is a Forge World's Phobos pattern bolt guns. As you can see, all the Marines are armed with Phobos bolters. I've chosen Phobos bolters because, again, Phobos bolters are like the first major issue in the fluff, as far as I can tell, and they're certainly in the style of the early armour. So I've given them these slightly chunkier, older-looking bolters. You know, and the more modern Tigris bolt guns are more synonymous with, say, Mark IV armour. The next kit I've used is, as you can see on this guy, and probably a number of others. Yeah, there you go, him. Is a set of Mark II Iron Hand shoulder pads. So, you know, you can buy them in sets of 10, and these have got a bas relief Legion badge on, and, you know, and obviously that it looks great and makes painting much easier, and particularly gets around the challenges of applying water slide transfers to curved shoulder pauldrons. The next kit I've used is a set of Phobos pattern bolt pistol and equipment accessories, and we'll just look at this guy as a quick example. You can see he's got a holstered bolt pistol as a sidearm, and then some ammunition pouches as well. Some spare ammunition pouches for his bolt gun and his bolt pistol, and a couple of grenades as well. And I added that because tactical marines are all about the bolt guns, and I imagine them carrying stacks of ammo for their bolters to enable them to to fight for a long time in the field and also put out a lot of fire. And in the game rules, that's expressed in the Fury of the Legion rule for Legion tactical marines. And then the final kit, so I said there was 6, and there is indeed 6, was taking two backpack parts from the Iron Hands Legion Tactical Squad Mark III set. And we got a Vexilla and also a Nuncio Vox as well, and that rounds out the components. So although tactical marines are kind of like your basic and most simple unit in a Legion force, I still really like what they are, and I still think they've got a really important role. So I wanted to put a lot into mine to make them look special, because I think it's easy to overlook how cool tactical marines are. Anyway, so let's have a look at some of these guys up close, and I'll just take you through a few bits and pieces that I did on the modelling. So these all had all the weapons on these bolt guns were separate, so they had to be glued on. So obviously that's quite a fiddly bit of modelling on the one hand. On the other hand, it does give you enormous potential to get lots of different poses, and as you probably see from these guys, I've certainly exploited that. And then you got the Phobos pattern bolt pistols, then the ammo packs. Now the ammo packs come in a variety of ways. I mean, you get like 2 bolter clips and a bolt pistol clip, or maybe a grenade clipped on. And the good thing about these is you can actually cut them up into singles, doubles, or whatever, and that makes them easier to attach to your models once they're built. The way I did these is I built the model, got the pose I wanted, and then attached the sidearm and the ammo packs at the end. So I didn't want to interfere with the posing just to be able to fit the ammo packs on. Instead, I fit the ammo packs around my finished pose. That's the first thing. On the new resin marines, the design of the bolt gun, and the weapon, it's not just bolt guns, it's all the weapons. The hand is now attached to the bolt gun, and there's just a wrist here. Now, I think that's a harder design to assemble, and for strength purposes, what I do is I pin all mine. So I've got some of those models, but I pin all mine because otherwise I found they were too flimsy, and I had found them too hard to stick together, and I had too many breakages afterwards. So that's a little tip if you've got the newer version of these. Once you've got the pose, an important thing I always do to finish the look of it is to heat up the hand, which is grasping the bolter, and just close it shut on the bolt gun. And it's quite a subtle thing, but of course the hands come in a sort of like a fixed position, and when you stick them together, quite often you have a set of fingers sticking out a bit, and it doesn't look like the marine is grasping the front of his bolter fully, as a natural human pose dictates. So I do that little heat up bit and just close it, and do it very carefully and gently to not bend the bolt gun or anything. But it just really kind of rounds the pose out and makes the whole thing look complete and as if it was designed that way. So that's a little tip there. We'll talk a bit more about heat bending later on. Here's a Legion Vexilla. I've talked about that in a separate video in terms of converting it. But that's a nice thing. Oh, kit number 6. I didn't actually say what kit number 6 was. Well, kit number 6 was actually a fine cast set of Iron Hands marine parts, and you can actually see that this guy's got a bionic arm, and that is actually from that set. Games Workshop they got, and Forge World have got quite a lean supply on marine bionic parts. You can't just buy a set of bionics, you have to buy like a weapon upgrade set, which has got a load of other bits in that you may or may not want. But for these, I did buy these, and to be honest, I used a few arms, a couple of shoulder pads, and I sold the rest on eBay, so got some money back on them. But what I did on this arm, which it's a nice bionic arm, it's in fine cast, so not my favourite material. But what I did do is I looked at the design of the Mark II armour and noticed it had these rounded shoulder pads. So what I did, this was actually Mark VII armour design originally. But what I did was, and it has a ridge running down the elbow joint, I smooth that down very carefully to create a shoulder pad that mirrors the design of the actual Mark II armour. And by doing that, the Mark VII bit actually blends in that bit nicer with the rest of it. It's not quite the same, but it's just a little touch. Of course, these Marines come with separate arms, separate torsos, so they're very poseable and separate heads as well. And if we just have a look at the Nuncio Vox Operator, you can see a similar sort of thing there. And again, I've used another bionic arm. This is a second bionic arm from the Finecast kit, and I've done the same trick with the elbow pad in removing that ridge to blend it into the Mark II design. And here you can see where I've cut a single ammo clip off one of the sets just to mount there, because there wasn't a lot of space with his backpack and his sidearm. Right, let's take a look at this miniature now. I don't know if you still get a running Marine in the Mark II sets currently, but this guy, I really like this guy's pose, and quite often with Marines you don't see them kind of like aiming their guns in a traditional sort of looking down the barrel. No, arguably they don't need to because they've got auto sensors and targeting equipment, but I still think it looks really nice and it makes them look really tactical. So this guy is kind of sprinting forward while aiming his bolter and firing, which I was really pleased with how this one turned out. Again, I've heated up the hand to close it on the bolt gun, and then with the bolt pistol I kind of put it at an angle just to make it look like as if it was got some attachment point. It's just jumping and bouncing a bit as he runs forward. With a number of the Armour Through the Ages packs have got Marines running and they're on one foot. What I do with this is I will drill a pin into the foot and up into the lower leg, and then put a piece of wire through, and then I'll bend the wire and clip it off, so it's kind of like a hook shape that goes through the base, and I'll then milli-put around that, and that just gives it a stronger anchor point, and hopefully stops any breakages occurring in the future. And you do it all at angles, so there's lots of opposing angles, so you don't have nothing can rotate without having to break the milliput. That's a tip you can apply to all models that are sprinting and have a single foot contacting the ground. Let's have a look at another one. Actually, no, one other thing on this guy is, once I built this guy, it wasn't posed quite as I wanted for looking down his bolter, so I heated it up and I just pinched in this wrist a bit to bring the bolt gun closer into his helmet and improve the look of the pose. And that's, why buy expensive Forge World models? Well, I suppose there's two main reasons. When you compare to the plastics, there's not really that much more variety of poses compared to a plastic. However, they are more finely proportioned, so they tend to have thinner legs, and they tend to be some in more upright poses. Resin detail is sharper than plastic, without a shadow of a doubt. But the other big advantage is the fact that you can heat the model up and repose them, and just slightly move it from what the original sculptor has provided you with. And by doing that, you can really fine-tune your poses and enhance the look of your squad. And here's another guy. So, here we go, another Marine firing his bolter, looking down the barrel. And, again, we've got the bolt pistol and the grenade. Here I've you've got a clip and a grenade. Then you've got a separate bolt pistol clip, which is a smaller clip than the bolt gun clip. So I've cut those up there just to fit around his belt better. When you buy these bolt pistol sets, do be careful and check that the molds are properly aligned, because I've had several which have got mold slips, and it doesn't take a big mold slip to completely ruin the detail on the bolt pistol's barrel, clip and holster. So that is one to watch out for there, because they are very susceptible to that. Let's have a close-up look at the iron pad, hand shoulder pad. You can get these in marks 2, 3 and 4 availability. Obviously marks 5 and 6 have the molecular bonding studs on that side, so you don't really have the same sort of a, you wouldn't wear the iconography on that side because of that, so you don't get, then don't make any for those marks. Shall we have a look at one more guy? You know, and again, with the resin models, you can just get that extra bit of dynamicism into your poses compared to the plastic models. You know, and that's not to say you can't get it in with the plastic models, and I've seen some very impressively posed plastic models. It just takes a lot more work because you can't heat them up and bend them. You have to cut, reposition, fill, etc., etc. So there's a lot more work involved. Anyway, there you have it. That is my tour around my Mark II Crusade Armour Tactical Marine Squad for the Iron Hands Legion. Thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.